Hello and welcome to this video on the VLH, VCO's Little Helper, from Takaab, who are SIAM Modular. This is a patchable, smart little expander for oscillators and sound sources, so let's check out what's to come in the video. This video is sponsored by Takaab and SIAM Modular. I remember some years back first speaking to Steve O'Hare, who is a musician and former technology journalist, about his ideas for making a simple module that would expand the features and sounds from his existing oscillators. And at that time he was already talking to Pete at Takaab, and Takaab are SIAM Modular. These ideas resulted in them collaborating to bring the VLH, VCO's Little Helper, to life. And there's a great mini documentary with the two of them talking about the development of the module, and I'll link that down in the description below. So the VLH is a 2 HP module with 2 inputs, A and B, which are meant for your oscillator waveforms, whether that's from 1 VCO or 2. You then have 2 suboctave outputs that are square-like waves, with the A divided by 2 taking the A input and giving you 1 octave down, and the A divided by 4 for 2 octaves down. There's then the ring modulation circuit, which is the A times B that multiplies the 2 inputs together for ring modulation. And if you only patch into the A input, it actually takes the suboctave as the second signal for the ring mod, giving you that ring modulated tone from a single input. There's then a noise output, which is white-like noise, and at the bottom there's A thru and B thru outputs, so you don't need multiples or stacking cables to keep patching with your input sounds. And there's plenty of ways to use these, so the patches are on screen. Do skip around as you like, and let's dive in. So here we'll use VCO's Little Helper as a kind of expander that you can use with any oscillator, and use it with a mixer to build this big, rich waveform to go into a filter. So here I have a single oscillator coming into VCO's Little Helper and then into some mixing before going into a filter. The filter's wide open, and the pulse wave is where this patch starts, just straight out of the oscillator, using the thru output there to come into the mixer. I can add a -1 octave sub, and a -2, and we'll use that -2 octave as the base upon which to build new waveforms, blending in the octaves above and the original pulse. And we've already got this interesting, thick, rich waveform, adding in some of the ring mod and some of the noise, kind of fuzz up that waveform, and then some of the saw from the original oscillator as well. Big rich wave into a filter. That filter's modulated by an envelope whose decay is being sequenced, giving this nice rhythmic bouncy effect. Delay back in. Let's add some PWM and get this waveform moving. It's just an LFO to PWM here, without the effects and the filter open. Closing the filter, delay back in, and my pitch sequence. So here we're in this mega subswarm, all from a single oscillator. And it just sounds so great layering up all these sounds. So let me take you through the layers in the patch before we have a little jam around. My input is a single saw wave from this oscillator, yellow cables, yellow trace, and that comes into the module, and the thru output goes to a filter with a simple decay envelope playing my clock. I'm then dividing down the subs, green cables and green trace here at -1, blue is -2 octaves, and these are coming into the two channels of the 2 LPG, where the top channel is panned hard left and the bottom channel is panned hard right. And there's a bonus bit of extra kind of sauce if you like. I have the ring modulated output, which if you don't plug a B input, will ring modulate the sub against the input waveform. So this is the saw wave ring modulated against the sub generated from the saw wave. That's coming into a VCA just playing quarter notes to kind of accent the rhythms in the patch into some delay. So as I layer these back up, let's add the saw wave back in. And then these two subs panned hard left and right in the 2 LPG. So 4 layers from a single oscillator, big stereo sound. Let's zoom out and have a jam around. So here we're exploring the ring modulation. I have 2 oscillators, an analog triangle wave, which is the green trace here, into A, and a wavetable into B, and the ring mod output is currently coming through this 2 LPG passive low pass gate, with some effects and some drums. And here's the direct output of the ring mod, straight to my mixer for us to record and monitor. And being two cleaner waveforms, sine-like here, and triangle, we get kind of classic, almost like lab equipment type ring mod tones that you may be more familiar with. As we start to change this waveform from my external wavetable oscillator to the left here, we get interesting blends and shifts. Now I'll add my sequence to this first oscillator again, the triangle wave. And then let's hear it through the low pass gate rather than just droning. It's a really interesting set of tones. Again, with this one not moving in pitch, but having one oscillator that does. Let's start to move this wavetable from my B inputs, this blue trace, with an LFO again. Some delay. And my drums back in. So here we're going to look at the sub-generator and the noise as modulation. And we'll modulate pulse width modulation here with these outputs that we'd usually use for audio. This is the pulse wave, the square wave from this oscillator, into a low pass gate that's struck, with a pitch sequence on the oscillator and some delay. It's very crunchy, bit crush delay. Now let's remove all the modulation here and just listen to this pulse droning through. You can even remove the pitch sequence for now. This pulse we're listening to directly, but it's also coming into VCO's little helper, and I'm first patching the sub back out into this mixer, and the mixer is feeding the PWM input, so I'm going to mix modulation for the pulse wave. Now patching the sub back to pulse width modulate. There's a fantastic range of sounds. Come down an octave. It's a really lovely modulation source. It's totally stable and in sync as it's derived from the pulse that we're listening to. Now I have the noise coming in on this red cable. gives this lovely fuzzy, glitchy sound. You typically modulate pulse width with an LFO, so here's an LFO on this third channel. And let's blend some LFO with the sub. Bit of noise. Through the low pass gate, pitch sequence back in, delay back in, and a more muted low pass gate tone. So here's a really quick patch just to say that subdividers for audio work the same way as clock dividers for triggers and gates. So here I'm using the subs as divided down rhythms to play my drum parts. Now the input is a trigger from my sequence. The through of this trigger, green trace and cables, triggers my maraca sound. The kick is yellow trace here, it comes from the divide by 2. We actually get a bipolar, kind of slightly saw blended square here. We get the kind of audio subshape as opposed to triggers or gates, but it's working fine to just trigger this divided by 2 rate. And divide by 4 is playing this rimshot sound, blue cables, blue trace. So some really simple basic division of a clock here, just to create a very basic beat, but just to highlight that subdivision for audio is the same or very similar in circuit to a clock division. So here I'd like to point out that ring modulation isn't exclusively for audio. Here I'm using it with green trace and yellow traces here, and cables which are triangle LFOs. They're unsynced, so the output will develop over time, and it's the A times B ring modulation output that we're monitoring in blue here, and that's modulating a bandpass filter. And we get an interesting waveform by ring modulating these two together. Now if we try, say, some slower waves, kind of feels like a smooth, fluctuating random. Now some faster LFOs here. Kind of looks like wave folding. Let's go faster again. And just plugging into different unsynced LFOs here. And ring modulating these two waves gives new wave shapes to modulate anything you'd like to in your patching. If you've got this far in the video, go leave a hard sync in the comments and head over to patreon.com/DivKid to support the work that I do and gain access to plenty of exclusives. Hit like and subscribe, that all helps the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.